A new neighbor threatened to sue me if I didn't remove the fence, so I completely removed it. She came to me pleading to put it back because her house was destroyed. About 6 years ago, I decided to build a fence in my backyard. Just a solid wood fence to give us some privacy and keep our dog from wandering. Before I started, I did the responsible thing and talked to my neighbors about it. We walked a property line together based on some old survey pins from when the houses were built. The pins were there, but they were too cheap to hire a professional surveyor to confirm the exact line. Honestly, I didn't care much either. We eyeballed, agreed on a spot that looked fair, shook hands, and I went ahead and built the fence. It was actually a great deal for them. I paid for all the materials, hired the crew, did all the work, and all they had to do was give me a thumbs up when it was done. They were thrilled. We were good neighbors for about a year after that. Then they sold their house, and that's when I met Anne. Anne was from the big city, worked as a realtor, and loved to mention that she'd flipped 8 houses in 12 years. She was loud, opinionated, and made it very clear that this house was going to be her forever home. She wasn't flipping this one, she was staying. She also had a dog, Razor, a German Shepherd mix, that spent about 90% of the day outside while Anne went to work. That dog barked at everything. Anne once told me Razor loved to chew furniture, which is why he stayed outside so much. I felt bad for the dog, honestly. For the first 6 months, things were fine. We waved at each other, made small talk about the weather, typical neighbor stuff. Then one afternoon, I'm coming home from work and I see a guy with a surveyor's vest walking around my backyard. He's taking measurements, marking things down, really focused on the fence line. I didn't think much of it, figured maybe Anne was doing some landscaping or building a deck or something. The next day, she shows up at my front door. She's holding a stack of papers and has this tight little smile on her face. She tells me that according to the survey, my fence is encroaching on her property by 9 inches. 9 inches. She said I had 2 options. Either pay her for the land my fence is on, or move the fence back to the correct property line. No room for discussion. I explained the whole situation. Told her about the handshake deal with the previous owners, how we agreed on the spot together, how I paid for everything. I even offered to show her where the old survey pins were. She cut me off. I don't care what deal you had with them. That's not my problem. The fence is on my property and I want it moved, or you can pay me. Your choice. I asked how much she wanted. She said $1,500 for 9 inches of land. I told her I'd think about it. She said I had 1 week, or she'd be contacting her lawyer. That night, I called a contractor buddy of mine, told him the whole story. He laughed and said, "So, you want me to remove it?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." Anne thought she was winning. She'd see me outside talking to the contractor and she'd stand on her porch with her arms crossed, watching with this smug look on her face. She even waved at me once. I waved back. The crew showed up 3 days later and removed every single post, every board, every screw. Took them 4 hours. My yard looked weird without it, but honestly, I didn't mind. My dog was old and didn't run anymore anyway. What Anne didn't realize, and what I didn't realize until after the fence was gone, was that the fence wasn't just sitting there. It was blocking wind. Serious wind. Our houses are built on a hill and her yard is right in the path of wind coming up from the valley. My fence had been acting as a windbreak for 6 years. 2 days after the fence came down, we got hit with a storm. Not a hurricane or anything, just a strong spring storm with heavy wind and rain. I'm inside watching TV and around 8 at night, I hear this frantic pounding on my front door. I open it and there's Anne. Her hair is everywhere. Mascara running down her face and she's soaking wet. She won't stop crying on my porch, getting louder and more hysterical. I tell her I can't help and try to close the door. She jams her foot in the doorway, pushing against it. I push back. She's screaming that I owe her, that I did this on purpose, that I'm going to pay for everything. Finally, I get the door closed and lock it. She starts pounding on it, screaming threats. I call the police. She's still out there when they arrive 10 minutes later. I explain everything. They talk to her, calm her down, tell her to go home. A week later, I get served papers at work. It's not a lawsuit about the fence. It's a restraining order against me. Anne claims I've been harassing her, threatening her, intentionally damaging her property. Court date is in 3 days, and according to the order, if I lose, I'll have to move. Update 1. The envelope came while I was eating breakfast. Process server just handed it to me through my front door like he was delivering pizza. I stood there in my kitchen reading through Anne's sworn statement, and I swear my blood pressure hit stroke levels. According to her version of events, I had systematically harassed her from the moment she moved in, made threatening gestures, glared at her through my windows, played loud music at all hours, let my dog bark constantly to disturb her peace. And the fence removal? That was me retaliating against her legitimate property dispute by deliberately destroying a structure that protected her home, knowing full well it would cause damage. None of this was true. Not one single word. But here's the thing about restraining orders. They're designed to protect people who are actually being harassed. The bar for getting a temporary one is intentionally low because real victims need immediate protection. So a judge looks at her tearful statement about feeling threatened and unsafe, and boom, temporary order granted pending a hearing. If the temporary order became permanent at the hearing, I'd have to move. My house was too close to hers to maintain the required distance. I had 72 hours to prepare my defense. First thing I did was call out sick from work. I'm a systems analyst for a medical supply company, fully remote, so my boss didn't care as long as my project stayed on track. Then I started gathering evidence. Every text message between me and Anne. Every email. I had the original messages with the previous owners about building the fence. I had receipts from the fence company showing the date of installation. I had the invoice from the removal crew. I printed everything out and organized it in a binder with tabs and page numbers like I was preparing for a deposition. My wife Jolene got home from her shift at the hospital around 3 p.m. She's an ER nurse, so she's seen some crazy stuff, but even she looked shocked when I showed her the restraining order. Did she actually say you threatened her? Word for word. Says I stood in my driveway making threatening gestures and yelling obscenities at her. Were you even home when she claims this happened? I pulled up my work calendar. The date Anne claimed I'd threatened her in my driveway, I'd been on a video conference call with our West Coast team from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. I had the meeting recording saved. Jolene started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was that laugh you do when something is so absurd your brain can't process it properly. She's lying under oath. You can prove she's lying. Yeah, but I still have to go to court and prove it. The next day, I drove to the courthouse to file my response. The clerk, this older woman with reading glasses on a chain, took one look at my carefully organized binder and actually smiled. Somebody's taking this seriously. I have to. If I lose, I have to move. She glanced through the first few pages. Honey, you'll be fine. I see these cases all day. You've got documentation. Most people show up with nothing but their word. That made me feel slightly better. Slightly. I spent the next 2 days checking and rechecking everything. I made a timeline of events with dates and times. I wrote out my statement about the fence situation, the previous owners, the handshake agreement. I included photos of the fence before and after removal. Then I did something I'd been avoiding. I pulled up the police report from the night Anne came pounding on my door. Reading through it made my stomach hurt. The responding officers had noted that Anne appeared highly emotional and possibly intoxicated. They'd observed no damage to her property at that time. They'd advised her to go home and sleep it off. They'd checked on her the next morning per protocol and noted that her patio furniture had blown around, but there was no structural damage to the house. That last part was important. No structural damage the night of the storm. I printed the police report and added it to my binder. The morning of the hearing, I put on my only suit. Charcoal gray, wore it to my grandfather's funeral 3 years ago. Jolene had to help me with the tie because my hands were shaking. You're going to be fine, she said, fixing my collar. You have evidence. She has lies. What if the judge doesn't believe me? Then we appeal. But that won't happen. The courthouse was busier than I expected. Lots of people waiting around looking nervous or angry or both. I found a seat in the hallway outside the courtroom and went through my binder one more time. Anne arrived 10 minutes before our hearing time. She had a lawyer with her. Actual lawyer in a suit carrying a briefcase. I had myself and a binder. She saw me sitting there and immediately moved to the far end of the hallway. Her lawyer glanced my way, said something to her, and they went into a corner to talk. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed concrete. When they called our case, I followed Anne and her lawyer into the courtroom. The judge was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie in the book twice. The bailiff read out the case number. Anne's lawyer stood up and started talking. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to months of harassment and intimidation by her neighbor. She's filed this restraining order as a last resort after attempts to resolve the situation amicably failed. The respondent deliberately removed a fence that protected my client's property, knowing it would cause damage. When my client attempted to discuss the situation with him, he became verbally aggressive and threatening. The judge looked at me. Do you have legal representation? No, Your Honor. Representing myself. She sighed. Not a good sign. Okay, let's hear from the petitioner. Miss Anne Hutchins, please approach. Anne walked up to the witness stand. She looked completely different from the screaming mess who'd pounded on my door during the storm. Hair perfect, makeup perfect, wearing a conservative dress and low heels. She even had her voice under control, soft and slightly shaky, like she was barely holding it together. The lawyer walked her through her statement. She described me as an angry, unstable neighbor who'd resented her from day one. said I'd complained constantly about her dog, claimed I'd played loud music at night specifically to disturb her, said I'd made rude gestures and comments whenever I saw her. Then she got to the fence. He knew exactly what he was doing when he removed that fence. The previous surveyor had told him it was encroaching on my property, and instead of correcting the issue like a reasonable person, he just tore the whole thing down. During the very next storm, my patio furniture was destroyed. My roof sustained damage. My yard was torn apart, and when I tried to talk to him about it, he slammed the door in my face and called the police on me. She actually cried, real tears. I've never felt so unsafe in my own home, Your Honor. He did this to punish me, and I'm terrified of what he'll do next. The judge looked unmoved but asked, "Do you have documentation of the property damage?" Anne's lawyer handed over a folder. Photos of her yard looking like a disaster zone. Patio furniture flipped over and broken. Shingles missing from her roof. Fence panels that had apparently blown off her back fence and shattered. The judge examined the photos. When did this damage occur? The night of April 18th, 2 days after he removed the fence. And you're claiming the fence removal directly caused this damage? Yes, Your Honor. That fence had been blocking the wind for years. The judge looked at me. Do you wish to cross-examine? I stood up. My legs felt like rubber. Yes, Your Honor. I walked up closer to the stand. Anne wouldn't look at me. Miss Hutchins, you stated that I played loud music at night to disturb you. What kind of music? She blinked. What? What kind of music did I play? Rock? Country? Classical? I don't know. It was just loud. Can you provide any specific dates or times when this occurred? Her lawyer objected. Your Honor, the respondent is not on trial for noise violations. The judge overruled it. Answer the question. Anne shifted in her seat. I don't remember specific dates. It happened multiple times. And these rude gestures and comments you mentioned. Can you describe a specific incident? You glared at me constantly. Glaring isn't a gesture or comment. Can you describe one specific time I said something rude to you? You told me you didn't care about my property survey. I said I'd built the fence based on an agreement with the previous owners. That's not rude. That's explaining the situation. Her jaw tightened. Your tone was dismissive and aggressive. I pulled out my binder and found the printed text messages. Your Honor, I have the actual text exchange between myself and Miss Hutchins about the survey. May I approach? The judge waved me forward. I handed her the printed messages. She read through them quickly. These messages seem polite and factual. Mr. Garrett explains the situation with the previous owners and offers to show Miss Hutchins the original survey pins. Anne's lawyer jumped in. Text messages don't reflect tone, Your Honor. The judge gave him a look that could freeze helium. I'll determine what's relevant, counselor. She looked at Anne. Did Mr. Garrett ever threaten you verbally? He didn't have to say the words. His body language was threatening. Can you describe what you mean by threatening body language? He would stand in his driveway and stare at my house. I held up my work calendar. Your Honor, Miss Hutchins claims I threatened her with body language on April 12th at approximately 2 p.m. I was on a video conference call with 11 other people from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. that day. I have the meeting recording and can provide a list of attendees who can verify I was inside my home office during the time she claims I was standing in my driveway. Anne's face went red. Maybe it was a different day. Your statement specifically says April 12th at 2 p.m. I might have gotten the date wrong. The judge was making notes. Let's move on to the fence removal. Mr. Garrett, why did you remove the fence? Miss Hutchins gave me 1 week to either pay her $1,500 for 9 inches of property encroachment or remove the fence. I chose to remove it. And you were aware this would leave her property exposed to wind? No, Your Honor. I honestly didn't think about wind exposure. The fence had been there for 6 years and I just never considered it as a windbreak. I was focused on complying with her demand. But you knew a storm was coming? I checked my phone's weather app history. The storm wasn't predicted until the day before it hit. By then, the fence had already been removed for 5 days. Anne's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client's home sustained thousands of dollars in damage that could have been prevented if Mr. Garrett had acted responsibly. I pulled out the police report. Your Honor, this is the police report from the night Miss Hutchins came to my home during the storm. The officers noted that her patio furniture had blown around, but there was no structural damage to her house at that time. The judge took the report and read it carefully. She looked at Anne. Ms. Hutchins, when exactly did the roof damage occur? Anne hesitated. During the storm. The police report says no structural damage was observed when they checked on you the following morning. They must have missed it. The judge's expression went flat. Or it occurred after the storm and you're attributing it to wind damage for the purposes of this case. That's not, Anne started, but her lawyer put his hand on her arm. Your Honor, even if the damage timeline is unclear, the harassment stands. My client has been made to feel unsafe in her own home. The judge looked at me. Mr. Garrett, Did you ever threaten Miss Hutchins? No, Your Honor. Never. Did you harass her in any way? No. We had one disagreement about the fence. She demanded I remove it or pay her. I removed it. She came to my door during a storm, became aggressive, and I called the police. That's the extent of our interactions. The judge sat back in her chair. She looked tired. Miss Hutchins, I'm going to be direct with you. Your statement contains multiple claims that the respondent has directly refuted with documentation. The timeline of the alleged harassment doesn't match his work schedule. The property damage timeline doesn't match the police report. And your description of his behavior is not supported by the text messages where both parties appear to be communicating civilly. Anne started to say something, but the judge held up her hand. I'm denying the restraining order. The temporary order is dissolved, effective immediately. You're both neighbors who had a property dispute. That dispute does not rise to the level of harassment or threat that would justify a restraining order. If you have issues with property damage, that's a civil matter for small claims court. This hearing is concluded. She banged her gavel. Anne looked like she'd been slapped. Her lawyer gathered his papers quickly and they left without saying anything to me. I stood there for a minute, binder still in my hands, trying to process what just happened. The bailiff walked over. You did good. Most people don't bring half that documentation. I thanked him and walked out of the courtroom. Jolene was waiting in the hallway. She stood up the moment she saw me. Well? She denied it. The order's gone. Jolene hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Then she pulled back and looked at me. So what now? Now I go home and try to forget this week ever happened. But that's not what happened, because 3 days later, Anne's house got hit again. Not by a storm, by something worse. Razor got out. Anne's German Shepherd mix that she kept outside all day finally found a weak spot in her back fence, the one that had gotten damaged in the storm, and got loose. I was working in my home office when I heard the screaming, high-pitched, terrified screaming coming from Anne's backyard. I looked out my window and saw Razor running in circles in her yard, barking like crazy. Anne was backed up against her house, phone in her hand, screaming at the dog to get away from her. Here's the thing. Razor wasn't attacking her. I'd seen that dog around enough to know his behavior. He was worked up and overstimulated from finally being free, running around like dogs do, barking because he was excited. But Anne was treating him like he was a rabid wolf about to tear her throat out. I watched her call someone, presumably animal control or the police. She kept screaming the whole time. Razor kept barking and running around. 20 minutes later, an animal control truck pulled up. 2 officers got out with catch poles and moved into the yard. Razor saw them coming and immediately went submissive, tail between his legs, belly low to the ground. They got him leashed up and loaded him into the truck without any struggle. Anne was talking to them, gesturing wildly, probably telling them how dangerous her own dog was. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I saw one officer shaking his head. That evening, Jolene came home and told me she'd heard through neighborhood social media that Razor was at the county shelter. Anne had surrendered him, claimed he was aggressive and unstable. The dog that lived in her backyard for 2 years. The dog that had never shown aggression toward anyone. Surrendered because he got loose and acted like a normal, excited dog. I felt sick. But it gets worse. 2 days after that, I'm pulling into my driveway after a grocery run and I see Anne in her front yard. She's got a for sale sign planted in the grass. She's selling. Less than 4 months after making such a big deal about this being her forever home. I carried the groceries inside and told Jolene. She pulled up the listing on her phone immediately. Check this out, she said, showing me the description. Charming home on spacious lot. Recent survey completed. Motivated seller. Priced to move. Motivated seller means she's desperate. Jolene scrolled through the photos. Look at the yard. The photos showed Anne's backyard, and it looked terrible. The damaged fence hadn't been repaired. The patio furniture was gone, but you could see the scratches and dents in the concrete where it had been dragged around by wind. Part of her roof was covered with a blue tarp. She never fixed anything, I said. Of course not. Fixing it costs money. She thought she could squeeze $1,500 out of you for 9 inches of property, and then probably planned to flip the house for profit like she always does. But now she's stuck with damage she can't afford to repair, and she needs out. I should have felt vindicated, maybe a little satisfied, but I mainly just felt tired. The house sat on the market for 3 weeks. I watched people come and go for showings. Anne was never there, her realtor handled everything. Then one Saturday morning, Anne's car pulled into her driveway. I was out front watering my lawn and we made eye contact for the first time since the courthouse. She got out of her car and stood there for a minute, like she was deciding whether to say something. Then she walked over to my property line. Didn't cross it, just stood on her side. I need to talk to you. I turned off the hose. Okay, the house isn't selling. 3 offers have fallen through. The last buyers backed out because of the wind exposure. Their home inspector noted that the property has significant wind damage risk without proper barriers. I didn't say anything. I need your fence back. My fence? I need you to rebuild it. The same fence you took down. I'll pay for half the materials. Anne, that fence was on your property according to your survey. You threatened to sue me over it. I know, but... She stopped. And for the first time since I'd met her, she looked actually defeated. Not fake, crying in court, defeated. Really defeated. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have pushed the issue. I thought I could get you to pay me for land that was technically mine. I didn't think you'd actually remove the whole fence. I didn't know what to say to that. The honest truth was, I didn't want to build another fence. It had cost me almost $3,000 the first time, and I'd only done it because the old neighbors wanted one and I was being nice. I'm not building another fence, I finally said. Please. I can't sell the house without it. No one wants a property with that much wind exposure. I've already dropped the price twice. That's not my problem. Her face hardened. You did this on purpose. You knew what would happen. I removed a fence that you said was on your property and demanded I move. I did exactly what you told me to do. You should have warned me. Warned you? Anne, I didn't know the fence was acting as a windbreak. I'd never thought about it. But even if I had known, why would I warn you? You threatened to sue me. You filed a fake restraining order against me. You lied in court. And you want me to help you now? She stood there for a long moment. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. I'm going to lose the house. The mortgage payment is killing me and I can't sell it. If I don't sell soon, the bank is going to foreclose. I wish I could say I felt bad for her, but I didn't. I turned the hose back on and went back to watering my lawn. She stood there for another minute, then walked back to her house. Jolene had been watching from the window. When I came inside, she asked what Anne wanted. She wanted me to rebuild the fence so she can sell her house. Jolene started laughing. The audacity. That's what I thought. Are you going to do it? Hell no. Good. Let her figure it out herself. But Anne didn't figure it out. The house stayed on the market. The price dropped again. And again. I watched the listing go from $485,000 to $465,000 to $445,000. Then $425,000. Then something interesting happened. I got a call from a lawyer. Not Anne's lawyer from the courthouse. A different one. Mr. Garrett, my name is Clifton Reeves. I represent Pinnacle Property Management. We're interested in purchasing the property next to yours, and I'd like to discuss the fence situation. What about it? We understand there was previously a fence between the properties that was removed. We're prepared to install a new fence at our expense if you'd be willing to grant us access to your property line for installation. Why would you want to put up a fence? The property needs wind mitigation to be viable for resale. We're purchasing it as an investment and plan to make necessary improvements before flipping it. So you're buying Anne's house? We have an offer pending, yes. I told him I'd think about it. Then I called my contractor buddy and asked him about property values. If someone installs a fence on the property line, does that increase my property value at all? Absolutely. Privacy fencing, especially good wood fencing, can add anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to property value depending on the market. Even if I didn't pay for it? Doesn't matter who paid for it. It's a desirable feature. I called Clifton Reeves back and told him I'd agree to let them install a fence, with conditions. They had to use the exact same fence line we'd originally agreed on with the previous owners. They had to use quality materials, same grade or better than what I'd used before. And they had to provide me with written documentation showing the fence was entirely on their property according to the survey. He agreed to everything. 2 weeks later, Anne's house sold to Pinnacle Property Management for $398,000. She'd bought it for $445,000. She lost almost $50,000 in 4 months, not counting the mortgage payments, property taxes, and repairs she'd made. The fence went up a week after closing. Beautiful cedar privacy fence, professionally installed, 6 feet high. Probably cost them $5,000. And just like that, my yard had privacy again, and I hadn't paid a cent. Jolene and I were sitting on our back deck one evening, about a month after the fence went up, when she said something that stuck with me. You know what's funny? If Anne had just been a normal neighbor, that fence would still be there. She'd still be living next door. Her dog would still be with her. But she tried to squeeze money out of a situation that didn't need to be a problem. That's the thing about greed. It makes you stupid. She raised her beer. To stupid neighbors who teach us lessons about ourselves. I clinked my bottle against hers. To fences that build themselves. Update 2. The new owners, Pinnacle Property Management, worked fast. Within 3 weeks of closing, they had contractors gutting Anne's house. I'd see different trucks there every day. Roofers, electricians, plumbers, landscapers. They weren't just flipping it. They were completely renovating it. One afternoon, A guy in a Pinnacle polo knocked on my door. Said his name was Troy and he was the project manager for the renovation. Just wanted to introduce myself and let you know we'll have crews working for about 6 more weeks. If the noise becomes a problem, here's my direct number. He handed me a business card. Also, we're installing a drainage system along the property line. Might help with water runoff on your side too if you get heavy rains. That's thoughtful. Thanks. Troy nodded toward my yard. You did some nice work with your landscaping. Makes our job easier when the neighboring properties look good. After he left, Jolene said, "See? Normal professional people who understand how neighbors are supposed to act." The renovation wrapped up in early August. The house looked completely different. New roof, new windows, fresh paint. They'd redone the entire backyard with professional landscaping, added a stone patio, and planted trees that would eventually grow tall enough to provide even more wind protection. The for sale sign went up with a price of $565,000. It sold in 4 days. Jolene pulled up the property records. Cash offer, $575,000. Pinnacle made over $150,000. Profit in 3 months. That could have been Anne's profit if she hadn't been so focused on squeezing me for $1,500. The new neighbors moved in on a Saturday in late August. Young couple, probably early 30s with a toddler daughter. They introduced themselves as Foster and Ramona Kelly. We made small talk over the fence, the beautiful new fence I hadn't paid for, and they mentioned they'd moved from an apartment downtown and were excited to finally have a yard for their daughter. They seemed nice, normal. The kind of neighbors who wave when they see you and don't threaten lawsuits over 9 inches of property. Everything was fine for about 3 months. Then I got a Facebook friend request from Anne. "Anne Hutchins wants to be your friend." I showed Jolene. She laughed so hard she choked on her coffee. What does she want? No idea. I'm not accepting. Check her profile. See if it's public. I clicked on Anne's name and her profile popped up. Public. No privacy settings at all. Her cover photo was a sunset over water. Her profile picture showed her at some outdoor restaurant, smiling with a glass of wine. I scrolled through her recent posts. Lots of inspirational quotes about new beginnings and leaving toxic people behind. Several check-ins at restaurants and bars in a town called Millbrook, about 90 miles away. A post from 2 weeks ago that said, "Finally settling into my new place. Small, but it's mine." The post had 3 likes. I clicked on her photos. She'd moved into a small duplex, the kind with vinyl siding and a shared driveway. Her furniture was the same stuff from the house next door, but it looked cramped in the smaller space. One photo showed her standing in a tiny backyard, no fence, holding a drink and trying to smile. The caption said, "Making the best of it." "She's in a duplex in Millbrook," I told Jolene. "Looks like she's renting." From owning a house she paid $445,000 for to renting half a duplex. That's a hell of a downgrade. I closed Facebook and forgot about it, until 3 weeks later when Anne showed up at my door. It was a Tuesday evening. Jolene was working a night shift at the hospital. I was making dinner when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there was Anne, standing on my porch with her arms crossed. "We need to talk." "No, we don't," I said, and started to close the door. She put her hand on it. "Wait, please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. I wasn't letting her inside. "What do you want, Anne?" "I want you to know what you did to me." "I didn't do anything to you. You created your own problems. You could have warned me about the wind. You could have been a decent person and told me what would happen if the fence came down. You threatened to sue me. You demanded I remove it. I did exactly what you told me to do." She started crying. Not the fake court crying, real crying, messy and ugly. "I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my dog. I had to move 90 miles away to find a place I could afford. My credit is ruined. I can't even get approved for a car loan." I felt a little bit bad. A little. But not enough to take responsibility for her choices. "Anne, you made a series of bad decisions. You paid too much for that house. You threatened me over 9 inches of property instead of just letting it go. You filed a false restraining order. You surrendered your dog instead of training him. You didn't maintain your property. None of that is my fault." "You're a vindictive asshole," she said, her voice going sharp. "You saw me struggling and you did nothing. You could have helped me sell that house, but you refused. Why would I help you? You tried to get me kicked out of my own home." She stood there breathing hard, mascara running down her face. Then she said something that actually surprised me. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I just wanted to make some money on the house and I thought you'd be an easy target. I thought you'd just pay me and that would be that. I didn't expect you to actually remove the fence. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm broke. I'm living in a duplex with paper-thin walls next to a guy who plays video games until 3 a.m. I'm working twice as hard to afford half the space. And I just I need you to understand that you could have prevented this." "No," I said. "You could have prevented this. You could have been a good neighbor. You could have accepted the fence situation as it was. You could have not threatened me with lawyers. You could have fixed your property damage instead of trying to blame me. You could have not filed a fake restraining order. Every single thing that happened to you was a direct result of your own actions." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and walked back to her car, a beat-up Honda with a cracked windshield. I watched her drive away. When Jolene got home at midnight, I told her what happened. She came here? To apologize? Sort of. More to make me feel guilty. "And do you?" "A little. Nobody deserves to lose everything." Jolene shook her head. "She didn't lose everything because of you. She lost everything because she's the kind of person who tries to extract money from neighbors over 9 inches of property, lies in court, and gives up her own dog when things get hard. That's not bad luck. That's character." I knew she was right, but it still felt weird. The next morning, I went out to water the lawn, and Foster was in his driveway washing his car. His daughter was running around the driveway with a plastic bubble wand. "Morning," he called over. "Morning. Hey, random question. Did you know the previous owner of our place?" "Sort of. We had some issues." He nodded. "I figured. We found a bunch of her stuff in the crawl space when we were moving in. Papers and documents. Some of them had your address on them." "Oh yeah?" "Yeah, legal stuff. Looked like she was planning to sue you?" "She threatened to. It didn't go anywhere." Foster sprayed his car with the hose. "Well, for what it's worth, we love the house, and the fence is great. Our daughter can play in the backyard without us worrying about her running off. Glad it's working out for you." That evening, I sat on my back deck with a beer and looked at the fence. The same fence line I'd originally built. The same position, same height, better materials. I hadn't paid for any of it. My property value had gone up because of it. And Anne had lost almost $50,000 trying to squeeze $1,500 out of me. Jolene was right. It wasn't bad luck. It was character. Update 3. 6 months went by. Winter came and went. Foster and Ramona turned out to be excellent neighbors. Quiet, friendly, kept their property maintained. Their daughter, Esme, was 3 and adorable. She'd wave at me through the fence sometimes when I was doing yard work. Everything was normal until I got an email in March. The sender was listed as A. Hutchins. My first instinct was to delete it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The subject line was, "I need your help." I opened it. "Mr. Garrett, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I understand why, but I'm in a situation and you're the only person I can think of who might be able to help. I'm being sued by Pinnacle Property Management for misrepresentation of property condition. They're claiming I hid known defects when I sold them the house. Specifically, they're saying I knew about the wind exposure issue and didn't disclose it. My lawyer says they have a strong case because I removed the fence right before listing the property and didn't inform potential buyers about the wind damage risks. But I didn't know about the risks. You knew. You had the fence there for 6 years. They're suing me for $85,000 in damages, which is more than I got from the sale after the bank took their cut. If I lose, I'll have to declare bankruptcy. I know this is asking a lot, but would you be willing to provide a statement saying you didn't know about the wind exposure issue either? That might help my case. You'd just be telling the truth. You said yourself you didn't realize the fence was blocking wind. Please, I'm desperate. Anne." I read it 3 times, then showed it to Jolene. She read it once and handed my phone back. "Nope." "Nope what?" "Nope, you're not getting involved. This is not your problem. She's being sued for $85,000. That would bankrupt her. She bankrupted herself. Remember when she filed a fake restraining order against you? Remember when she tried to make you move out of your own house? I remember. Then you remember that she's not your friend and not your problem. But if I just wrote a statement saying I didn't know about the wind thing, that would be true. I didn't know." Jolene sat down across from me. "Listen to me. If you get involved in this, you're opening yourself up to being dragged into a legal case that has nothing to do with you. Pinnacle's lawyers will subpoena you. Anne's lawyers will want you to testify. It'll take hours of your time, possibly days. And for what? To help someone who tried to destroy your life? She's not trying to destroy my life now. She's just asking for a true statement. No, she's asking you to be her character witness in a lawsuit. That's completely different." I sat there thinking about it. Jolene was right. Getting involved would be stupid. But part of me felt bad. Anne had screwed herself over. But $85,000 in damages seemed excessive for just not mentioning that a fence had been blocking wind. I didn't respond to the email that night, or the next day, or the day after that. A week later, I got another email. This one was shorter. "Mr. Garrett, I understand if you don't want to help me. I wouldn't want to help me either if our positions were reversed. But I'm attaching the complaint from Pinnacle so you can see what they're alleging. I think you should read it. Anne." I downloaded the attachment. It was a 15-page legal complaint filed by Pinnacle Property Management against Anne Hutchins. I started reading. The complaint alleged that Anne had knowingly concealed material defects in the property. Specifically, she had removed a fence that had been providing wind protection for over 6 years. Immediately before listing the property, she had failed to disclose to potential buyers that the property had experienced significant wind damage after the fence was removed. She had covered the wind damage with temporary measures, tarps, etc., without making permanent repairs, giving the false impression that the property was in better condition than it actually was. She had not disclosed to Pinnacle during negotiations that multiple previous offers had fallen through due to wind exposure concerns. The complaint included exhibits, photographs of Anne's property taken before the sale, showing the blue tarp on the roof and the damaged back fence, statements from the previous potential buyers who'd backed out, an inspector's report noting wind damage, and then at the bottom of page 8, there was a statement I wasn't expecting. The seller was informed by her neighbor, Mr. Garrett, that removing the fence would expose the property to increased wind damage. Despite this warning, she proceeded with removal and failed to disclose this information to potential buyers. I read that paragraph 5 times. Anne was claiming I'd warned her. She was saying I knew and told her what would happen. That was a complete lie. I'd never warned her. I didn't know about the wind exposure until after the fence was gone. I called Jolene at work. I know you're busy, but you need to hear this. I read her the relevant paragraph from the complaint. She was silent for a moment. Then, that bitch. She's lying to make herself look less negligent. She's saying I warned her and she removed the fence anyway, which makes you a potential witness for Pinnacle, not for her. Exactly. Jolene sighed. You need to talk to a lawyer. Today. I called a lawyer that afternoon. Local guy named Warren Gibbs who'd handled our will paperwork a few years back. I explained the situation. He was quiet for a minute after I finished. Then he said, "Don't respond to any more of Anne's emails. Don't communicate with her at all. I'm going to reach out to Pinnacle's legal team and let them know you're available to provide a statement." Wait, I want to help Pinnacle? You don't want to help anyone. But if Anne is making false claims about what you said, you need to correct the record before this gets worse. If you stay silent and they believe her version, you could end up looking like you were complicit in hiding the wind exposure issue. That's insane. Welcome to civil litigation. I'll handle this. Don't talk to anyone about it. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Warren. Pinnacle wants to depose you. It'll take about 2 hours. They'll ask you questions about the fence, your interactions with Anne, what you knew, and when you knew it. Just answer honestly. When? Next Thursday at 2 p.m. I'll be there with you. The deposition took place at Warren's office. Pinnacle's lawyer was a woman named Sandra Voss, mid-40s. Looked like she'd never smiled in her life. She started with basic questions. How long had I lived at my address? When had I built the fence? Why had I built it? Then she got to the meat of it. Did Miss Hutchins ever ask you about the fence's purpose? She asked why it was there. I told her it was for privacy and to keep my dog in the yard. Did you tell her it was blocking wind? No, I didn't know it was blocking wind. When did you become aware of the wind exposure issue? After the fence came down. There was a storm 2 days later and I saw the damage to her property. Did you warn Miss Hutchins that removing the fence would cause wind damage? No, I didn't know it would cause wind damage. Sandra made a note. Did Miss Hutchins ever claim that you warned her? Not to me, but I saw her complaint where she says I did. And that statement is false? Completely false. Why do you think she would make that claim? Warren cut in. He's not going to speculate about her motivations. Sandra nodded. Fair enough. Let me ask this way. Did you have any conversations with Miss Hutchins about wind or weather conditions? She mentioned during the storm that her patio furniture had blown around. That's it. Did you offer to help her? I called the police because she was pounding on my door and wouldn't leave. Sandra actually smiled at that. Noted. The deposition went on for another hour. Sandra asked about the restraining order, the court hearing, the text messages. She was building a timeline of Anne's behavior. At the end, she closed her notebook and said, "Thank you for your time, Mr. Garrett. Your testimony is very helpful." After she left, Warren said, "You did good. Stick to the facts. Don't speculate. That's exactly what we needed. What happens now? Now we wait. Pinnacle has a much stronger case with your testimony. Anne claimed you warned her, which would make her knowingly negligent. You've now testified under oath that you never warned her, which means she's either mistaken or lying. Either way, it doesn't look good for her defense. How long until this is resolved? Could be months. Could be a year. Civil cases move slowly. Great. I went home and tried to forget about it. Jolene asked how it went. Fine. I just answered questions. And now you're done with it? Warren says I might have to testify at trial if it goes that far. She groaned. I told you not to get involved. I didn't get involved. Anne involved me by lying about what I said. Same result. She was right, but I wasn't going to admit it. 3 months went by. I didn't hear anything about the case. Life went back to normal. Then one afternoon in June, I got a letter from Pinnacle Property Management. Inside was a check for $500 and a letter from Sandra Voss. Mr. Garrett, the case against Anne Hutchins has been settled. Miss Hutchins agreed to a judgment of $62,000, paid out over 5 years. While we would have preferred a larger settlement, your testimony made it clear that her claims about being warned were false, which significantly strengthened our position. Please accept this check as compensation for your time and cooperation. We appreciate your willingness to provide truthful testimony. Regards, Sandra Voss. I showed Jolene the check. They paid you? Apparently. She laughed. So let me get this straight. Anne threatened to sue you over 9 inches of property. You removed the fence. She lost $50,000 on her house, got sued for misrepresentation, lost that lawsuit, and you got paid $500 for your trouble? That about sums it up. She kissed me. That's the best neighbor dispute story I've ever heard. I deposited the check and used it to buy a new grill. Every time I use it, I think about Anne in her duplex in Millbrook, making payments on a $62,000 judgment for the next 5 years. Foster came over one afternoon while I was grilling. He leaned on the fence, the beautiful cedar fence I hadn't paid for, and said, "Man, that smells good." "Thanks. New grill." "Nice. Hey, weird question. Ramona was talking to someone at the gym who used to live in this neighborhood. She mentioned our house, and the person said there was some drama with the previous owner? Little bit, yeah." Foster waited for me to continue. When I didn't, he said, "Well, whatever it was, we're glad it's over. This is the best house we've ever lived in. I'm glad it worked out." He went back to his yard and I flipped the burgers. The thing about revenge is that it's usually not satisfying. You imagine some perfect moment where your enemy realizes they've lost and you've won. You picture them broken and defeated while you stand victorious. But real life isn't like that. Real revenge is quiet. It's watching someone destroy themselves through their own bad choices. It's refusing to save them when they come asking for help. It's cashing a check from their opponent's lawyer while grilling burgers on a sunny afternoon. Anne didn't learn some valuable lesson about being a better person. She just learned that trying to extract $1,500 from a neighbor over 9 inches of property can cost you $112,000 when you add up the loss on her house sale and the legal settlement. That's not justice, that's just math. But sometimes math is enough. Jolene came outside with beers, and we sat on the deck watching the sun set behind Foster and Ramona's house. Their daughter was playing in the backyard, laughing and chasing bubbles. "You know what I like about this?" Jolene said. "What?" "It's over. Completely over. Anne's gone. You're never going to see her again. She can't hurt you. She can't bother you. She's just gone." She was right. Anne was gone. Not just from the house next door, but from my life entirely. The fence was back up, better than before, and I hadn't paid a cent for it. My property value had increased. I'd gotten paid $500 for telling the truth, and Anne was in Millbrook making payments on a judgment that would follow her for 5 years. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well while your enemy destroys themselves. I raised my beer. To fences. Jolene clinked her bottle against mine. And to neighbors who aren't Anne. We sat there until the stars came out, and I didn't think about Anne Hutchins once, because she didn't matter anymore. And that, more than anything else, felt like winning. Final update. 2 years later, I was taking out the trash on a Thursday morning when a car I didn't recognize pulled up in front of my house. The driver's door opened and Anne stepped out. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd cut her hair short and dyed it darker. She looked thinner, older, tired in a way that went deeper than just lack of sleep. My first instinct was to go back inside and lock the door. My second instinct was to call Jolene. My third instinct was to just stand there and see what she wanted. I went with the third option. Anne walked up to the edge of my driveway but didn't come any closer. Smart. She'd learned something at least. "I'm not here to cause problems," she said, her hands up like she was approaching a wild animal. "I just wanted to say something and then I'll leave. Okay, I'm done paying the judgment next month. 5 years of payments. I'll finally be done with all of it." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. "I wanted you to know that I get it now. What I did, why everything went wrong. I've had a lot of time to think about it. Anne, you don't need to. Please. Just let me say this." I nodded. She took a breath. "I was a bad person. Not just to you, to everyone. I spent 12 years flipping houses, and I got good at seeing people as obstacles or opportunities. You were supposed to be an opportunity, easy money. But you weren't easy, and instead of accepting that, I tried to force it. I tried to make you the villain when I was the one creating problems. I still didn't say anything. I lost everything because I couldn't just let 9 inches of property go. 9 inches. That's less than the length of a pencil. And I destroyed my life over it. She wiped at her eyes, but she wasn't crying, just tired. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. You didn't do anything to me. I did it to myself. Okay, I said. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Anne? That it's all forgotten? That we're cool now? We're not cool. We're never going to be cool. You tried to ruin my life because you saw me as an ATM. You filed false legal claims against me. You lied under oath. The fact that you finally understand you were wrong doesn't change any of that. I know. So why are you here? She looked at my house, at the yard, at the fence. Because in a month, I'll be done paying for what I did. And I realized I never actually apologized. Not really. I always made it about what I lost or what happened to me. But I never said I'm sorry for what I did to you. She looked me in the eye for the first time since getting out of the car. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, actually sorry. You were a good neighbor and I treated you like garbage because I thought I could get away with it. I stood there holding my trash bag, trying to figure out if I believed her. The thing is, I did believe her. Not because she'd suddenly become a better person, but because she'd paid an actual price for her behavior. $62,000 over 5 years. That kind of consequence forces you to reflect whether you want to or not. Apology accepted, I finally said. Anne looked surprised. Really? Really? But that doesn't mean I want you in my life. We're not going to be friends. You're not welcome at my house. This is a one-time conversation, and after this, I don't want to see you again. I understand. She turned to go back to her car, then stopped. For what it's worth, I looked up your property recently, out of curiosity. It's worth almost $600,000 now. I know. The fence helped with that, the new landscaping, having good neighbors who maintain their property. You made out pretty well. I made out well because I didn't try to squeeze money out of my neighbors over nothing. I just lived my life. She nodded slowly. Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. She got in her car and drove away. I took my trash to the curb and went back inside. Jolene was making coffee. Was that Anne? Yeah. What did she want? To apologize. Jolene turned around, eyebrows raised. Seriously? Seriously. And I accepted it. Huh. She handed me a mug of coffee. How do you feel? I thought about it. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sympathy. Just nothing. I feel fine. Like that was something that needed to happen and now it's done. Jolene kissed my cheek. Good. Now let's never talk about her again. And we didn't. Foster and Ramona stayed next door for another 3 years before they sold and moved to a bigger place across town. Their house sold for $615,000. The people who bought it were a retired couple who spent most of their time traveling. We waved at them when they were home and otherwise forgot they existed. Perfect neighbors. My property value kept going up. The fence that I hadn't paid for kept providing privacy and wind protection. My life went on exactly as it should. And somewhere out in Millbrook, Anne Hutchins finished making her last payment on a judgment that taught her an expensive lesson about greed and consequences. I hope she actually learned from it. I hope she became a better person,